Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
You know, sometimes we see something and it's like, okay, I don't want to really think about this in depth because I want to just discuss it with you guys and see what you think, because there's so much out there that just doesn't fit. And we've gotten some information from the guides, and there's a lot that they cannot tell us exactly. And so we have to in tune what's going on. World population is one of them. But before we get going with that, we do want to thank our newest Patreons. As yesterday we did a Patreon-only video that I find very, very fun.
They are fun. And we want to say a huge thank you to Angie, Jen, Aisha, and Gidget. You guys, thank you so much.
Yes, as the Patreon family continues to grow, we are very thankful for that, and you guys keep us going in these times. This is the world population that they tell us by year, and I don't think it's accurate. That's my gut feeling on it. It just doesn't seem to make sense, as we've told and shared with you guys before. For instance, if you look at this, you see 8 billion people right now. 8 is the symbol of eternity when you put it on its side, and it makes me wonder if maybe that's the magic number. And then you have events that we might call resets, mud floods, etc., and things go back to a different level, as we know from the Sumerian stories of Enlil saying too many humans can't control them. And it's not just the Sumerian stories, there's others as well. So when we go back to, say, like 1850, for instance, you see 1.2 billion people on the planet. So the growth from 1850 to now is incredible, really, compared to what was before it. Yet, when we look at the Kurasheka War, which is given to us of probably about 5,000 years ago, they say there's 5 million people on the planet. And the Kurasheka War is covered in the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita, which is a section of the Mahabharata. And it talks about like 1.3, 1.4 billion people losing their lives in a war on Earth. How could that happen if there's only 5 million people on Earth? In fact, when you go back to, this time period, let's just say they don't have the year 0 there. But if we look to what's accepted with the Israelites being led by Moses into the Promised Land, and you look at the census that's taken, the numbers seem unusually high if this is all the people that there are. In fact, if you're looking at it biblically, when Cain is basically banished and there's supposed to be no other people in the world, he even basically says other people might kill him. So there's something there that's amiss. Well, as we know, there's just revision after revision, and it's really a fascinating thing to look at. When you see the migrant situation right now, I think this is absolutely something that's done time and time and time again. If you look at genetics like 23andMe and these other companies that are really part of the bigger picture that most of humanity doesn't even have a clue about, often our genes don't match up with what we're told our lineage is. And in fact, there's a lot of strange anomalies, like those elongated skulls that they find in Peru. And where do they find some of the closest genetic relatives? In the Black Sea. How could that possibly be when we're talking skulls that are a couple thousand years old or more, sometimes less? They weren't supposed to be able to travel from the Black Sea area all the way to South America. It's given our history, it should be an impossibility, but then our history is completely, in my opinion, a fabrication. I think it's completely fabricated. I think it's constantly being revised, edited, and updated. In fact, if you do look to how the priestly caste in as far as biblical scripture goes, the Masoretic texts, they're always open for interpretation and proper interpretation. And in fact, they didn't write vowels. They didn't put vowels in. So they were constantly in our face being revised and edited. And I think we see it with the same thing on the internet right now. I go scrambling looking for something that I think is going to fit this video perfectly, and I can't find it because it's kind of washed. It's just not there anymore. And then you check boards like Reddit and you see people saying the same thing. Yet there are enough pieces to this pie that we can piece together to at least say the official explanation is just not right. Huge, monumental migrations of people is something that happens, I think, all the time on this planet. Maybe on a bigger scale like what we're seeing right now, maybe that is even maybe every 150, 200 years. I can't get an exact number on these things, and we keep looking at it and trying to see it from different angles and get some clarity on it. So again, we invite, please do share what you guys are feeling and seeing and thinking with all this. Here you have New York City going downhill fast. A large migrant brawl breaks out. This is not just in New York. It's all over. This is a man from Iran who has come in across the border, southern border. This is in Arizona. And he's just saying, he would be very, very scared if he was a citizen of the U.S. Entire populations in history seem to kind of disappear. They get absorbed into something else. They become something else. Their entire ways of life just kind of are gone in the blink of an eye, and there's something new in place. There's a lot of things that are very, very special about India. I mean, we can't even begin to touch all the fascinating things that exist in and around India. And again, the modern version of India is actually much smaller than Greater Bharat that existed in the past. And this was a culture that was initiated by beings that were much more benevolent than the current control group that we have in place. In fact, the beings that kind of founded the root of this civilization farthest back may actually be beings that are literally at war with the current ownership, so to speak, of the planet. As if we talked about that, the wars of the Devas and the Asuras. And when you look to the mythology, there was open wars in our skies that we would see with very advanced beings battling right overhead. Sometimes, ships exploding and tremendous balls of fire lighting up the night sky and just absolutely creating awe to those on the ground below them. But it wasn't just here. This is again a global situation. And in some of the Hindu scriptures, they speak about the Asuras having bases in other places from the Devas. So there was a time period where both more benevolent beings were here and the more malevolent beings were here, and they were literally fighting kind of for control of the planet. And this is part of what we see reflected in these tales of the Titans versus the gods in Greek mythology. We see it with the Vanir and the Aesir in the Nordic mythologies. We see it in all these different tales. The tales of one tribe known as the Tuatha De Danann, Again, what we're talking about is extraterrestrial beings that are literally battling for control of the Earth. And then we see at certain times there seems to be areas of the Earth that have lost their populations, so to speak. All of a sudden, there's like all these structures and buildings, but where are the people?
I know, where are the people? We got found some really beautiful photos of the architecture, and just looking at it, and like the first photos that came out were of 1860. Well, that's a big change. But the first photos that came out that were really, really pretty, I want to talk about those for a minute.
Okay, so these first right here, this is Calcutta today. Calcutta has 4.5 million people, very densely populated, incredibly busy city. I think, Westerners going to India with the size of the cities, again, the population it's the largest population on Earth, and actually you could fit like 3.5 Indias into China. You could also fit about 3.5 Indias into the U.S. And yet the population here is more than 1.4 billion people at this point in time. So they tell us, U.S. population 333 million. So, you have 4+ times the people in 1/3 of the land area. It's very, very dense. It's swarming. And this is a picture today of this gorgeous structure. This is from photos in India. Greco-Roman. It looks Greco-Roman to a pretty high degree. Kind of a blend in some ways. It has a feeling of a blended nature. But our history, again, is not what we think it is.
When I was looking at this, and I was looking at other photos, where are they, that were taken? They said they were taken in 1860. And looking at the architecture and looking at the beauty of this, and how could this possibly have been made just out of stone? I'm not really thinking that this had to have been standing far longer than what they're saying. I know if they had this kind of technology to make this architecture, they definitely would have had the ability to take photos. So there's something kind of awkward going on there. And then if you look at today's photos, you can tell the degeneration of everything, the degeneration of humanity, how, they just seem like they added on as best as they could. But if you look at this is just beautiful. And I mean, I'm looking at it and I can see work of lasers, technology that we're barely even using today. And just the energy of it all is so different. And where did the people go? Where did everyone go? And what I'm seeing is the spiraling nature of evolution is ongoing. It's like waves, and it comes in spirals. It's forever changing. And I do believe that these people that were here at one point had some control over their evolution, and they had some understanding of how all of this world works. The concept of ascension. I believe they had a really good understanding of how ascension worked. So I do believe they had some control over it. Maybe not complete, but they knew a lot more than we do now, because you can see with the other photos that we were showing the descension of the times, where this was a time where, I mean, we couldn't put this architecture up. It's just very beautiful. It's stunning. It's stone. And to me, it's like a signature. This architecture is a signature of beings long gone for right now. You know, they tried to hang on. When I look at the wars and I read about them, I see beings that are hanging on as long as they can to help humans get through the darkest times, because they're not going to be able to stay here during the darkest of times. And they did what they could, and they left us the information that we have today. But it's up to us to take in that information and decipher it, and realize what is true and what is not true. So we're left with a pretty big job on our hands, getting through the darkness of the all.
So I'm going to give you guys links to these 3 channels, which are all very interesting. This is Jarid Boosters' channel. And these are the first photographs ever taken of India in our modern times, photos, yes. Let's just say that, because, again, I'm sure we've had much more advanced technology than they've let us know. 1860, 1870 by Samuel Bourne. There is another link I'll put there, too, where you can look at the full library of them. Again, the takeaway is, the detail is amazing. They're still digging up, and this is the key too. Praveen Mohan is another channel. He's a little sensationalistic, yet he does cover a lot of archaeology that's been hidden over. And, you know, they've literally dug up under dirt amazing structures that we really couldn't duplicate today. In India, where, they are buried literally under hundreds of feet of dirt. Makes you wonder again about the mud flood idea. This looks like these structures were all just reoccupied within the last 180, 200 years. They're obviously just amazing, beautiful works of art with such intricate detail. And often, again, you'll see these gigantic, fantastic doorways that are literally immense, as if they're making stuff that people that are our size can go through, but yet somebody that's maybe 10 or 12 foot tall could walk through at the same time, just in case you got some important dignitaries from elsewhere. Where are all the people? Yeah, if the world had 1/6 of the people, 1/7 of the people, at that time, sure, there would be a lot less people. But again, these massive structures built and apparently empty for long periods of time. And it should be stated, too, that we find this in all over the place. We do find this all over the place. If you guys have followed channels like this one, The Mind Unveiled, these guys are very fun. And they do a lot of deep diving into Tartaria in this. The babies sold as products in the 1900s. We kid you not. Makes me rethink. They really have made me rethink the whole Little Rascals thing that I grew up with. Was there a massive repopulation program? And we've touched on this before. I mean, the whole Cabbage Patch legends. There's a lot here, and there's a lot I want to just kind of throw out there for you guys to give me your take on. Again, if there's mass amounts of people that are being either freed from this existence through the process of ascension, maybe there are mass groups that do ascend. I mean, we do have evidence of that as well. And of course, they always try to rewrite things in a way that seem logical and scientific. Again, science is sales in this world. And yet we have people like the Anasazi and other tribes that just seem to have disappeared. Where'd they go? I mean, there's no sign of them. And you don't even see like mass burials where somebody else came in and killed them all off. No, they just disappear. Where'd they go? Well, there's a lot more to Ascension than most people understand. And this is the whole this was the whole mission of Yeshua. The real Yeshua was to share that with us. Because again, we got that Yeshua didn't die on a cross, which is unpopular with those that have gone along with the official narrative. What happened was much better. He literally ascended without going through the normal process of death. He was translated. He jumped into a higher density, and part of his mission was to show us that that's what we could do. And when we see all these empty structures, there could be a nefarious reason for that, obviously, and we do understand the dark nature of the control matrix that's in place at this time. But then there can also be some positive natural explanations as groups of people are literally rising up and out of the dark matrix.
Mm-hmm. There's a couple of vocabulary words that bother me when it comes to ascension, and one of those words is harvest. I don't like the word harvest, and I've heard that word kind of tossed around a little bit. I mean, to me, the vibration and the feel of it just means, to take something and do something with it when it's ready. It doesn't speak of anything that's very positive in nature. But I do believe that there was a time on this planet where beings had some control over their ascension, and the true Yeshua, Jesus, coming back as an ascended master, showing us to help us remember through these darkest of dark times what we are capable of, giving us that little taste of the DNA memory of what we can do and what we're capable of doing, was his mission, to bring these teachings to us and these understandings to us in a way where we could follow ascension, and we can move up and up and up if we look towards these teachings, if that's what we so choose. So this is very mysterious how they're just empty. They're just empty. They're quiet. They're ghost towns. Obviously, they could house a lot of people, but they're not there.
Yeah, and again, this is echoed in places all around the world. So again, this is what the system does. Like when it comes to the real Yeshua, could they let people know that they could escape the dark matrix? No. No. They want you to think again that you die and then you get judged, and that they can resurrect you. And again, that's one of those things. There's dark voodoo arts and other arts that literally have, according to some historical accounts, brought back cadavers. We know zombies. I mean, this is something, again, the darkness that's on the planet is real. And, these leaders, controllers of this dark matrix are as dark as you can imagine. And all our myths and legends of just how dark can they get, well, yeah, they could get pretty dark. And yes, the other thing is, certain populations were too intelligent, were too connected to the planet to be utilized. And yet we do have the abduction phenomenon as well, with tons of people going missing. Millions go missing every single year. And it might not be necessarily random people, because again, they have technology and ability to see who has activated pineal glands, see who has activated chakra systems, and thus could be a threat to the entire structure of the dark matrix. And there are whole populations that have been really targeted. And just look to the Native American situation in the United States, again, because they were living in harmony with the earth for the most part. And sure, they warred amongst themselves and all, but they lived in a much more natural manner than, say, the Europeans who were living in cities, in industrial society. they were much more in harmony with the natural order, and they could sense and see, and they could often speak to the dead when the dead had passed on. It blows the whole belief system paradigm and the whole power structure out of the water. That has to be controlled. And this is what we have seen, herded up into the small reservations and, basically assimilated into the greater culture, the greater power structure of this dark matrix, as their old belief systems had to be discarded. They were given their new belief systems and, in many cases, again, conform to what society viewed as ideal. There's an interesting story about native trackers that were used by both sides, the British and the French, during the French and Indian War. And they also realized that when the natives would cut their hair and put on certain uniforms, and this again, even past that time, to where certain tribes were being used to get rid of or control other tribes. This goes, all the way to Custer's time and past that. Well, when they had their hair cut, they were not as effective. When they put on all the trappings of civilization, they seemed to lose a lot of their touch with nature. This is exactly what they've done to the entirety of the world, is basically take away the vestiges of the culture that was given to us from the Golden Age and the Silver Age, and give us Dark Age culture, Dark Age teachings, Dark Age history that disconnects us from nature. Again, just the divine Father in heaven, as opposed to the Mother under our feet that we can feel and sense. It's what they do, and they disconnect us. And now we also get the vision of people being born without ever being in a womb through these artificial incubators, and that's a major part of their plan. And also, it begs to say, where did all these new people come from? Where did the new, Mind Unveiled especially goes deep into this. These Cabbage Patch Kids, or where did all these kids come from? Because again, incubators at the World Fair, and the reality is, were these kids basically created, even way back then, in factories? Were they created in labs? Are these all test tube babies? Is just to put it really, really plainly. Are these kind of clones in some ways? How about all of us then? How about Homo sapiens sapiens? Because Homo sapiens sapiens is the modified version of what was here before. Many different species were here. We're not the pinnacle. No, we see our second chromosome is fused. We have telomeres that disintegrate over time on our chromosomes, and that might not be the norm. No, everything about us has been modified, and these are our bodies. These are not our souls or our jiva in the Atman in the Hindu tradition. Again, the soul just has a temporary experience as a human inhabiting a body, but what they've done is modified the bodies, so we're all driving Yugos instead of driving Ferraris.
Mm-hmm. This is very true. But I mean, we do have the option to make ourselves better and become more advanced. But there's this concept of the wombless, which really, really bothers me. And looking back and looking at Mind Unveiled and other channels like this, how many of them are there? And is that what is truly in our power, our constructed power grid? Those that are in charge. Are they the wombless? Are they going to bring back the wombless? I mean, if you look at us and we know we were born of source spark, we have the ability to go up and really ascend far up and above what they can do. And I mean, this is really a creepy concept for me, but I've had to look at it because it was put in front of me. And I think that there is a very limited ability of, for the ability to evolve, I think is just kind of cut off and limited when we're dealing with wombless. The womb is such a sacred thing. I mean, she is a stargate. She brings people from one world into another world from source. I mean, that's something that you can see. Recently, they've been putting out a lot of information about all of these incubators. Why is it so important that they stop people from coming in through the womb? There's something there.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, they are trying to create the perfect slave species, while the species here is being triggered to evolve up and beyond their control. And perhaps large groups have evolved up and beyond their control time after time after time again. I like this statement: to create a light body is not magic, nor the result of wishful thinking. It is science, transformational science. Yes, absolutely. Everything, again, is operating at different frequencies. And so if you want to work on your light body, a good mantra is the traditional Om Mani Padme Hum, and that will develop the light body. In fact, there's been tens of thousands of cases of Buddhist monks that have developed the light body, and often they're just gone in like a flash. There's nothing left. It's just nothing. Or sometimes there's toenails and hair left. Sometimes they go into a meditative state and they don't seem to be alive or quite dead, yet the body literally shrinks to like a tenth of its size, because they choose when they are going to leave the vessel. And we can choose. And in fact, when you look to the Golden Age teachings that we see, not just from India and the Hindu tradition, but also the Greeks spoke of this as well. They said when the soul decides they've had enough in the Golden Age of this experience, the human just lies down with family and loved ones, says goodbye, and goes to sleep and leaves the body. And that's the normal transition. It's just that easy. It's just like laying down, going to sleep. The only difference is you don't come back and you move on and you are in another realm. This is all part of how things really do naturally work. And this other channel I'll link there is UAP, again, covering this. Where are all the people? Well, again, when I look to India and think about this, I know that when we look to the Hindu scriptures, there's a lot of answers to a lot of the mysteries there. And again, Buddhism comes out of Hinduism, so does Jainism and many other traditions. They are all centered around the art of meditation and the science of meditation. And so would I be surprised if there was a mass ascension here? No, not at all. I mean, it would make perfect sense to me, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Meditation is very, very important when it comes to evolution, because everything that we create starts as a thought. And if we are out of control of our thoughts, that's going to create kind of a chaotic world on the outside of us. So meditation gives us that ability to start controlling those thoughts. When you can control your thoughts, you can start to control your world. Just like this little guy. I bet you he's just thinking about bananas and peanuts.
Absolutely. So I look forward to your comments, guys. Much love. Thank you so much for being part of this family. It's an honor and a blessing. Source bless. Namaste.
Namaste.